even as the Israel-Hamas war continues to escalate, Russia has entered the conflict. On Thursday, Russia hosted a delegation of Hamas leaders and called for an immediate ceasefire. The meeting comes a day after Putin warned the world that a further escalation in war could spread in other parts of the world as well. Take a look at this detailed report.
The war between Israel and Hamas has left the world divided into West and anti-West grouping. Russia, which is already involved in a 20-month-long war with Ukraine, seems to be taking sides. On Thursday, a Hamas delegation held a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mikhail Bogdanov, in Moscow. Hamas hailed the stand of Russian President Vladimir Putin and acknowledged the active role of Russian diplomacy. The Hamas delegation also reiterated the rights of the Palestinian people to freedom, self-determination and the right of return. The meeting comes a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin warned the world against any escalation of the conflict. Speaking at a meeting with Russian leaders of different faiths in Kremlin on Wednesday, Putin condemned the killing of women, children and old-age people in Gaza. He further stressed that the bloodshed and violence in the region had to be immediately stopped. Claiming that any further escalation of the crisis would be extremely dangerous, he warned the world that it could spill over beyond the borders of the Middle East. The remark came days after US President Joe Biden drew parallels between Hamas and Putin, accusing them of attempting to annihilate the respective neighboring democracies.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood. He claims the Soviet Union created Ukraine.
Earlier, Russia, along with China, also vetoed a US resolution that condemned Hamas' October 7th attack and supported Israel's right to defend itself. Evidently, the world remains deeply divided, even as it witnesses one of the worst humanitarian crises in decades. Bureau Report, India Today.
My colleague Shiv Arur is joining me live from Tel Aviv. Shiv, Russia meeting and hosting Hamas leadership, China backing Iran. Is this a new West versus Russia-China escalation to this war?
You know, Russia meeting with Hamas leadership, China backing Iran, this just proves that every single big international development or crisis is going to become a kind of battlefield of the West versus, the China-Russia combined. This is the new Cold War. This is the new Cold War, whether it was Ukraine, whether it was Armenia, Azerbaijan, Israel, Palestine. It is not surprising even remotely to see how, something like this has become a kind of canvas for a new collision between the West and Russia and China. Remember that emotions, sentiments, politics are already extremely frayed right now in the wake of what happened in Ukraine. But as we continue to report on the Israel-Palestine issue, direct backing of Iran is going to become quite problematic. Remember, China doesn't have anything to lose in that respect because, they're already fighting, a massive battle with the United States over what's happening in Taiwan. That continues to be a concern. Russia is fighting a huge battle with NATO, which includes the United States. Russia and China actually stand to gain, in the event of a large humanitarian crisis or a political, geopolitical implosion in West Asia. The kind of void that may be created there will be advantage Russia and China. And the United States is keenly aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why they've deployed bigger at this point. We've just heard about the U.S. conducting preemptive strikes in Syria after, being attacked by the Syrian army, which, as you know, is also a proxy of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So this is another big sort of battleground for the West versus the China-Russia combined. And I can only see it escalating.